In 1917, 103 years ago, during World War I, and that battle had a lot of different people in it, one of which was the Ottoman Empire. And Jerry Seinfeld did a great thing about the Ottoman Empire, an entire empire built on just putting your feet up, and you'll really appreciate it. I don't think that's what it was. They were Muslims. And the Muslims had taken over Jerusalem. And the British, a lot of them were Bible people, had made a declaration by Lord Balfour that they would give the land of Israel back to the Jews, because the Zionist movement was going on since the late 1800s with Theodore Herzl and all that stuff. Einstein was raising money for the Jews to have their homeland back. And so General Allenby was sent there to try and capture the city. And so he takes his troops to Jerusalem. He surrounds the city. And the goal is, to free it from these Muslim Turks. And the night before, he's a Christian. Allenby prays and he says, Lord, I don't want to bring a bunch of troops into Jerusalem and destroy these holy sites. What am I going to do? And so he wires home back to London. He says, I need some instructions. How do you want me to do this surgically? What should I do? And London sends back this reply, verses 4 and 5. And that was the reply that they sent to him. Isaiah 31, verses 4 and 5. As birds flying, so will the Lord of hosts defend Jerusalem. Defending it, he'll deliver it. So Allenby gets excited from this Bible verse, and he commands all of his troops to have this verse read aloud to them in the morning before the invasion. So all the men, the chaplains are reading it, and the captains are reading this, and they're reading Isaiah 31, verses 4 and 5 to all the troops, and they're getting all ready with their rifles. And at the same time, on the morning of December 10th, he commands every available aircraft to fly over the city of Jerusalem. This is 1917. All they had was biplanes. That's a long time ago. So he got every English biplane he could. He got all the captured German biplanes. He had them up, and he had them sent flying across to Jerusalem on the morning of December 10th, 1917. They were wingtip to wingtip. They were nose to tail. They flew in kind of low over what the Muslims call the hill of evil counsel, just south of the temple site. And as they flew over, one of the pilots was to drop a note by the eastern gate of the temple. And the note came down, and the Muslim troops picked it up, and it said, "Surrender," signed General Allenby. And here's what happened. The Muslim Turks were frightened by two things. Number one, all these airplanes coming in. This is 1917, okay? All these things flying overhead. And number two, surrender, signed Allenby, because they're reading it, and they saw two things. They saw Allen as Allah, which is God, and B, or Bay, means son. And they have this thing say, surrender, saying the Son of God. And the Turks threw their weapons down, and Jerusalem was taken without a single shot being fired. December 10th, 1917. True story. You can go read about it. Yeah. God wrote in Isaiah, I'm going to take care of my city. And he's going to take care of his city. That's his land. Like it says back in Isaiah 8, verse 8, that's Emmanuel's land. Emmanuel is Jesus. It's not the Jews' land, it's Emmanuel's. Jews get to have it because Jesus is a Jew, but it's his land. And they're not going to damage that city. There are going to be no nuclear bombs going off in that city. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. The Lord is not going to permit it. If somebody did launch an ICBM with multiple reentry targets that split up, those MIRVs that have 10 bombs on them, and they split up 10 atom bombs, every one of them would be a dud. God wouldn't let it explode. God's going to take care of it. That's his city. And he showed. By the way, I was just thinking about that whole thing. Now, God's probably sitting in heaven on December the 8th, watching all this thing getting ready, and he's looking, and his Michael Gabriel, come here, look at these guys. They're getting ready to take my city. And they're all running around thinking about what they're going to do. The Turks are figuring out how to, defend these positions. The British are figuring out how to attack these positions. And I don't want any of this to go on. I got to find a way out of this thing. So when Allenby's praying that night, he kind of puts a thought in his mind. Why don't you wire London for some advice? Because that same night, when David DiPietro, the Lord over there in London, who's going to give the orders, is praying, God tells him, read Isaiah 31. And when you get asked a question, don't send any military advice, just send those verses back. And God is kind of engineering for his city. Look, most of the time, God is hands-off with stuff that goes on down here. He's very hands-off. You want your free will, have your free will. You're going to answer for it. And you can make the choice. You can't choose the consequence. I've already written down what the consequence is. But you can make all the choices you want. But there's certain things that I'm intimately involved in. That's my son and my land. And there's times I'm going to move my hand in, and I don't care what you want to do. I will get involved. And then there's other times I'll just lay hands off. Go ahead. Make a mess of your life. Or if you're wise, don't trust in Egypt. Trust in me. Let me lead you, and I'll make something of your life.